Hello and welcome to the show that promises to bring to you the flag bearers of India Inc. for tomorrow. And today I present to you Shashwat Goenka, the son of Sanjeev Goenka. Shashwat, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure meeting you as well, Nisha.
Thank you so much. You're all of 23 at a time when most of the youngsters join as trainees, but you're heading the retail business at Spencer's in the large conglomerate that you're part of. Does it run in the family?
I think it does, because I know with my granddad, he put my dad on to work at a similar age, and the same thing with my uncle as well. So it definitely does run in the family. And then having been born and brought up in a family like ours, it was always inevitable that you would be joining the family business, and as in when you were to join it, you would be having significant responsibility. And so that's probably where this manifests itself. And
so do you think that this is what you really wanted to do, join the family business? And did you take active interest from the very beginning? Because that's the perception outside, that from the very beginning, the sons in the family take active interest in the businesses and are very much part of the family business culture.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that I've always wanted to do. And I think both my father and my grandfather have been very inspiring in that manner, which is probably why I've wanted to always do what they have done. And so business was a clear choice for me, and therefore I even studied that in college. And
Shashwat, what's the mandate that has been given to you by your father Sanjeev Goenka when he handed over the retail business at Spencer's?
So while there was no specific mandate that, oh, you've been put there to do this, it was very obvious that we have to turn the company profitable, and sooner than later. And so that's the mandate that I'm working with. And
how challenging is it, especially at a time when the economic scenario is not the best? And do you think that the economic growth story in terms of the consumer demand in India is still intact?
So two things. One, the economic growth story regarding the consumer in India is still intact, I think. And our numbers bear truth to that. For example, our same-store sales growth has been about 14% for the last 5 years consecutively, and last year was at 16%. And so regarding your point about whether it is challenging, definitely it is challenging, because in India there are so many of us retailers and no one's really sort of figured out what is the best or the ideal model. And India is, I would say, like every state in India is like a different country where the consumer needs and requirements are so different.
You have a daunting task, no doubt about it. And you said that different regions behave in a different manner when it comes to your sector. Now, what is the study and the analysis that is going in? Because now that you have an aggressive plan of setting up 80 stores, 50% of the proposals are in tier 2, tier 3 cities as well. What is that insight going forward? What is it that you're going to do that you are going to make it there?
So so what we do is we sort of really do a very thorough catchment area study, which is what we call it internally, which is a combination of desktop research and field research. And we then sort of see what would be the best assortment that we need to present to the consumer there. And that's what sort of has been helping us all through, and that sort of clicks. So I think we've sort of figured that out, and that's keeping us going.
What are the other new things and the fresh idea that you're bringing to the table? Because considering you're the new generation and you will come with your set of ideas and agendas, what is it that you have brought to the table which wasn't there, and what is it that we're going to see in future as well?
I think one of the things by virtue of me being given the mandate of looking into Spencer's is just the focus that Spencer's is now getting in terms of even within the group, because earlier, I guess with Dad, he's looking into so many different businesses that he has to portion his time. So now I can really spend all of my time there. And that sort of gives a lot more focus and sends a message down to the team, which actually says that, okay, this is very important and we need to do it all together.
Now, there have been quite a few strategy changes at Spencer's Retail since the time you took over, like the large formats or non-food area business, and in food also different categories that you're looking at, premium segment. So tell me the few things that you think would be the growth drivers for making the company profitable.
For us, hypermarkets were definitely the way to go, because for us, we were getting the highest growth in hypermarkets and the highest sales per square foot there. And what also I think worked with us was because in India, the consumers really want, when they go to buy their monthly grocery or weekly grocery, they don't want to only buy the grocery and the food products. If they were able to buy other things that they might have to go out of the way to buy otherwise, I think they're very happy. So that's why we sort of figure the hypermarket model is good for us. And moreover, the margins in India are very low in food. So we had to obviously look at the non-food businesses to sort of grow margins. And without a margin, like retail is a margin game, and without margins you sort of don't really get anywhere. So therefore we want to focus a lot on general merchandise and apparel going forward as well.
Right, so this is your strategy, but what according to you will be the key factors which will keep you ahead of the competition?
I mean, a lot of it will be, I think a lot of our consumers are now going to the Western world, the Southeastern world, and they're getting used to premium products. Moreover, a lot of foreign nationals are now coming into India and are actually working in India. So that's another demographic that we want to tap into. So we're not saying we'll go maybe all out and go only premium or have only premium outlets. But for example, in our tier 1 metro cities, we're even looking at a new format called the Live Fresh format, where we'll sort of have a hub where you'll have different food elements. For example, you'll have packaged gourmet products from across the world, and it'll be categorized like by cuisine.
All right, so will that get you more footfall, and is the margin play also better in this business?
I mean, the margin play there is definitely much better because we'll really be producing the food, the homemade replacement, and selling it. And as far as getting more footfalls, if as a format that sort of clicks, then definitely it would get us more footfall because people will probably then start coming there for their home meal replacements. So they will come in more often, and as a result will hopefully buy a lot more other products from the store as well.
And for future, what is the target in terms of revenues, and when do you think that you'll break even, start profit making as far as retail business is concerned?
So our sales per square foot as of like FY13 were about 1220. This year we hope to take it to about 1300 per square foot, rupees per square foot. And looking at profitability, we're hopeful either Q3 or Q4 of this year, one of the quarters will be profitable. And on a full year basis, probably FY15. That's a hopeful statement, but yeah, hopefully we'll be there.
And the most logical step after you become profitable is also value unlocking.
I mean, so essentially first we want to become profitable and then go about the value unlocking process. And so IPO is definitely high up on the list, but that doesn't rule out FDI, strategic partnerships, even not even just like FDI partnerships, but even partnerships with other Indian retailers maybe, and even private equity. And I think they're all options that we'll sort of explore at that point in time. And even maybe exploring newer formats, and should we go into the cash and carry, e-commerce, should we focus on small stores? I think these are all decisions we've sort of parked aside, saying once we turn profitable, we'll sort of figure out what would be the best way to go at that point in time.
And IPO is one of the probabilities as well.
I mean, for the value unlocking, potentially, yes.
All right. So this was all about the retail business.
Right.
And Shashwat, now tell us, retail you're heading, but which are the other group companies? Because you are part of a large conglomerate. Which are the other companies that you're part of or involved in?
So I've joined our group a year ago. So when I joined, it was more like a month of training across all the different group companies. And then there was a McKinsey project going on in most of our companies. So I was sort of working on all of them. So that gave me very good exposure to all the different businesses, CES, CPC, BL, Spencer's. And thereafter I started focusing on Spencer's starting November. And I worked with the supply chain team, then with the corporate team, and then now I'm sort of heading it. And so essentially I spend most of my time with Spencer's. But also last year in October we acquired a BPO company, First Source. So I'm on the board of that company as well. So while I don't really play an operating role, I am involved with key decisions that sort of happen in that company. And outside of that, what I find very interesting and therefore I try and involve myself with is Saregama. Because now we're at this juncture of seeing how we can go digital and what is the next best way of distributing music, because CDs, cassettes, they don't really sell with the consumers today, and so that's the other area that I'm sort of interested in. And
will I be right if I judge from whatever you have just told me that you're more interested in the new economy companies, you're more interested in retail, IT, digitization, so these are the areas that interest you, while the group is also functioning in very important fundamental sectors like power,
right,
chemicals, tea, coffee, so rubber, so these are the other sectors. So how are you going to take it forward? Are you going to involve yourself more on that, or you want to cut a niche, create a niche and expand this particular space that you're involved in?
I mean, so today at 23 I feel like I can add a lot more to these new age businesses than I can to slightly more mature businesses, and that's probably why I am where I am. And going forward, definitely we would want to expand the new age businesses, but that's not saying that we don't want to expand the core businesses of the group as well. So power, manufacturing, all of that will still continue to play a key role. And I think today it's working out well because Dad's sort of looking more into those and I'm looking more into these. So that's working out well. And
I'm sure that assignment is a tall task for you. But what I wanted to also understand is that you actively participated in the acquisition of First Source. It was a big acquisition by the group, quite surprising for the markets as well. Now that it's behind us, that acquisition is done. Tell us, whose idea was it, and where did it crop up from, and what were the learnings that you got from this acquisition?
So I think as a group we were wanting to diversify into some kind of a business, and so we also had McKinsey advising us on what are the potential sectors, and we were definitely looking at something that was not as heavily regulated as power is, and definitely something which is more consumer facing, because we as a group are a consumer facing group, for example with CESC, with Saregama, with Spencer's. So we wanted to keep that part still going.
You've been a gold medalist at Wharton. You have learnt all the ways of an M&A and the ways these kind of deals are struck. From that learning, how much could you add to this particular acquisition, and what has been the learning personally for you from this whole episode?
That was good background learning for a good stepping stone, but definitely the amount that I actually learned while doing the whole process was very enlightening in terms of even just dealing with the target company employees at that point, and sort of your first meeting with them, they don't want to share much with you because they don't see you as adding potential benefit to them, and they see you as maybe a tiger wanting to eat them up or something like that. And but what I learned was how over time you have to sort of build a comfort level with them, so they're happy sharing relevant information with you so that you can make an informed decision. And I think that was an important step, and the other step was more so in dealing with the different parties, like our lawyers, their lawyers, our group people, the company people, the different stakeholders from who we bought shares. And so it was a very interesting process which happened fairly quickly, and so those 5-6 weeks were very intense, but it was very, very good learning. And
price point, that is the negotiating bit, that
right.
is the deal breaker for every M&A. What did you learn from this particular acquisition? How intense was the negotiation?
I mean, it was fairly intense because we had a certain amount beyond which we were not willing to go, and I think they had a certain amount beyond which they were not willing to come down. And I think over time it just sort of went here, there, and went in the middle, and I think that's how most negotiations sort of go.
Who relented? Tell me that.
I think it was a mix of both parties. It wasn't just like one relented. It sort of was somewhere in the middle. And
okay, and would you involve yourself more on First Source going forward?
I mean, today I think I would still want to be more involved with Spencer's, but maybe a few years from now, potentially, I don't know, I think it's a call we'll take then. And
analytics is one of the area that First Source will look at getting the expertise in, and that could be through an inorganic route as well. Right. Is there any plans on that front, and would you be involving yourself in that?
So I mean, at this point there are no plans, but we're definitely open to looking to acquire smaller analytic firms for First Source, but it would be a First Source acquisition, not necessarily a parent company or a CESC acquisition. And as and when the need arises, or as and when that opportunity arises, is probably when I'll look at it and we'll sort of take it from there.
All right. And tell me something. What is the target number of years? You said that as and when that happens, of course, you will also evolve as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, and as a leader. But how many years personally you have given to yourself to be at the helm of a business, and then start taking charge of the overall group as well, and be much closely working with Mr. Goenka on that?
I mean, I think I've worked fairly closely with Dad even today. And as far as taking over the control of the group, I mean, that's not something I'm looking at doing anytime in the near future. I mean, Dad is here to stay, and so that's good.
It's a rare occasion to have both father and son together in the show, Mr. Sanjeev Goenka. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's a real pleasure.
Pleasure is all ours. And Mr. Goenka, first question. Shashwat is sitting right here. I've been asking him about his plans about Spencer, the retail business going forward. What is it that made you make him the head of that business? Why this company and not any other company in the conglomerate?
Well, quite honestly, I think it was the most challenging assignment in the group. It's a difficult assignment. And I wanted him to break his teeth in something that's challenging rather than something that's simple. Because life is full of adversities, it's full of difficult situations. And you need to learn to take decisions when things are not going quite your way. Secondly, this business affords itself to entrepreneurship because each store is a profit center. Each decision on merchandise is a decision in as much as will it work, will it not work, will you have a greater focus on apparel or food or HWP. These are all major decisions and these are entrepreneurship decisions. And I think so the learning is also substantial. And I think in the last year I have noticed that he's actually brought value to the company. The company has grown, losses are down, and when I talk of sales and I talk of costs and I talk of getting to profitability, a large part of it is because of the focus and the energy that he brings.
How soon do you think Shashwat will be involved in other businesses and at the group level also?
Well, I think at this point in time the focus has to be Spencer's, and I think Spencer's has a long way to go. It's doing well. It'll get to profits soon, I hope. But having said that, I think the growth opportunities are huge. And I think for the next few years, it's going to be Spencer's and more Spencer's for him.
That's a tall task for you, Shashwat. So how difficult a boss is Mr. Sanjeev Goenka, or is he more of a father even at work?
I think he's a mix of both, and that works out well. It's not like he's a very tough boss or anything, but he's an inspirational father who sort of guides me when I need help.
Yeah. So tell us a few things that you have totally imbibed from your father.
I mean, one of the most important things is to drive everything by logic, because if there's logic, then there can be no counter logic to it. And if there's logic, then there probably will be results as well. And I think that's the most important thing that I've learned from him.
So Mr. Goenka, you said that in last 1 year, he has brought a lot of value to the company, the retail business, and he did share with us the strategies that he has put in place for making that company profitable in the near future. Tell me, is the IPO of Spencer's Retail going to be the launch pad for Shashwat going forward?
Well, I think the moment Spencer's turns profitable, Spencer's would get listed. That is for sure. And I think what the exact mechanism will be, I think remains to be worked out. But it would be either a mirror image demerger from CSC, or an IPO, or a combination of both. And I think we're just waiting for the first quarter of profitability, and then I think we're going to move very fast on this.
So it's for you to decide, and you've already said that FY15 should be profitable, and yes, and for this year itself you will have a quarter of profits is what you have said as well. All right. In terms of other group companies, of course Shashwat is on the board of Source as well, and he actively participated in the M&A transaction. Now, you are a diversified group and you've always looked at better opportunities. Now, First Source was one of the big acquisitions after a very long time. Are we going to see more such unrelated sectors that you are going to dabble with?
No. There was a logic behind the acquisition of First Source. The power business is capital intensive. It's government intervention intensive. And we wanted to move away from having too much of government intervention and a very capital intensive business. And First Source actually is a perfect complement for that. Having said that, for us, the power distribution business, our retail business, our music business are all people related businesses, as is the BPO business. So it was synergizing with our strengths and complementing areas that we actually wanted to complement on. And we're happy with the acquisition. It's done well. But now we see no compelling reason to go into a new sector, because all the sectors that we are in actually afford very healthy growths.
Right. Mr. Goenka, I clearly remember reading about you being very instrumental in the acquisition of CSE way back. And is that something that if Shashwat also goes ahead and does in any other sector which you may not agree with, I mean, that's a possibility in future?
Well, I mean, he would be free to chart his own course, and I don't think I'd like to impose my views necessarily on him. I had an independent streak, And so I can't grudge him that if he does have one.
But tell us, Shashwat, what are the other interests that you may have for the group, and when are you looking at making yourself more involved for the group, and when are you looking at making yourself more involved in the business decisions at the group level and the portfolio management for the conglomerate as well?
What interests me a lot is food services, but definitely not in the near future. And as far as getting more involved with the group, I think today Spencer's is where I really want to spend most of my time. And I think it needs it, and I can learn a lot from there as well. So I think for now it's going to be that, and maybe a few years from now sort of start looking at other things as well. And
Marwari families and Marwari kids really come with the genes and the business acumen. Okay, so that's not something probably you need to work on, but what are the areas that you are looking at for mentoring Shashwat for going forward?
You know, I think it's about the ability to take decisions quickly and logically. It's about how to deal with people in a human manner and yet be fair and firm. It's about clearly having a vision and a view for growth and being relentless in the implementation.
Shashwat, you have this family legacy to take forward, and only at 23, do you think it's too much of a burden at this age?
I mean, my dad is there with me, so it's okay. And
all right, he's not saying much, but Mr. Goenka, how do you see the group really forming up going forward? And with this move of Shashwat heading the retail side of the business, can we say that pretty much a succession plan is set for the conglomerate?
Absolutely. Shashwat will clearly succeed me, and I don't think there's any ambiguity on that. But there is some time to go for that. I hope to be working for many more years at this point in time.
Sure you will.
So, but I think, yes, the first 3 years after the separation was really focused on very hardcore operations. So I think we've actually doubled almost on every parameter. And now I think we've got to again get on to the next phase, which is going to be growth. We're pretty confident if you take the next 3 years, we will actually have a reasonable report card.
It was a pleasure talking to both of you.
Thank you,
Mr. Goenka. I just hope that Shashwat not just becomes a mirror image of you, but maybe an improvised version in future as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.